Cal's Divine Comedy, written by Pastor Melissa Fain, from the writings of Dante, from the writings of Virgil. Haben Sie keine Angst, fürchte dich nicht. Part 1. Inferno. Canto 1. Cal was sitting behind the glass counter of his antique shop, looking at an ancient watch through a loupe. It had good bones. That much was true. It still functioned, which was nice. Just no one used pocket watches anymore, and this one looked rough. Pulling back, he pinched the bridge of his nose and loudly sighed. The best I can do is 20, he said to the man on the other side of the counter, who was looking apprehensive at best and needing a hit at worst. $20? He exclaimed. That piece has to be at least 100 years old. And it shows, Cal retorted back. He rubbed his finger over the engraving on the inside cover that he could have probably read if he gave it more effort. I have to remove the etching and then do at least 100 in restoration work beyond that. Take it or leave it, he stated, dropping the watch on the counter. Or take it to a pawn shop. They told me to take it to an antique shop, he moaned, grabbing the watch and stuffing it back in his pocket. Thanks for nothing. Cal just shrugged as the man angrily fled the store. Rolling his eyes, he picked up Linden Hills, the novel he was taken away from, and returned to reading it. Lost and Found Antiques was a business Cal owned and ran. It was inherited from his father, who inherited it from his father, who inherited it from his father, who opened it as a general store at the beginning of the 20th century. The business was barely profitable, and only because Cal decided to sell classic reprints online. He thought many times of just selling everything off and going virtual, but then it was like this voice in his head would remind him he had some rare treasures he'd never be able to find again, so he simply hung on to it all. Now in his late 30s, with a growing forehead where his hair used to be, he was also slightly overweight, which he blamed on sitting in a shop all day instead of having a more active job, like the one he wanted in his 20s, being a national park ranger or a paid trail guide. Hearing the tinkle of the door, Cal looked up to see a young woman with her long brown hair up in a high ponytail. Good afternoon, he absently said. Just let me know if there's anything I can help you with. Then he pretended to start reading his book again, just in case she needed help or was perhaps trying to steal something. Looking down at her wristwatch, which looked far more expensive and interesting than the one he had just appraised, she then looked at him, to only look once again at her watch. Looking at him a second time, she asked, I'm sorry, are you feeling okay? Completely taken aback by that question, Cal dropped the book and just stared. Seeing his stunned silence, she continued, Do you find yourself drawn to objects or places you were not previously drawn to? She looked around the shop. Perhaps not the right question for someone who owns everyone's old stuff. Bookmarking his spot, he stood to get a better look at the lady with the strange questions. She didn't appear unbalanced. She was wearing a gray sweatshirt and jeans with a satchel on her shoulder. Perhaps a bit outdated, but nothing strange. Her eyes looked focused, not wild. She shook her head. It's fine. No one really answers me anyway. Then again, I don't need an answer. You're possessed. I'm here to take your companion that's riding you like a train and get him back where he belongs. It was about this time Cal wondered if he needed to tell her to leave or pretend she was acting sane. He reached for the phone, prepared to call the cops for help. You won't remember this, she said, pulling out a very old glass medicine bottle. The bottle itself looked interesting. But when she uncorked it, it left Cal with a feeling like a giant vacuum had been placed in front of him, and he could feel the suction pulling something out. "Almost done," she slowly said. "There," she announced, corking the bottle. With the feeling of his soul being cleaned gone, he could feel an emptiness in its place. "What did you take from me?" It was a feeling of being alone, like what he had before was a companion. "I want it back." The woman looked at the bottle and back to Cal. "This tag-along is driving you to nothingness. You're better off without him." Was that what he was feeling? Nothing? What was he feeling before this vacancy took hold? "Well, that was my job for the day," she cheerfully announced, putting the bottle into her satchel. "Go have a normal life." She waved and turned for the door. "No," Cal found himself saying much louder than he had planned. "What did you take from me?" Going around the counter, he grabbed the woman's arm. In the process, the bag fell, causing the bottle to slip out and fall to the ground. The woman, in turn, pulled the bag back up on her shoulder. "He's nothing you want to keep," she said with a hint of frustration, reaching down to retrieve it. But Cal grabbed it before she could and stepped away from her. "What is it?" he asked for the third time, hand on cork ready to open. The woman, now in full alarm mode, held a hand out. "The important part is there's nothing in that bottle that belongs to you, so just hand it back. Please," she added at the end, clearly seeing the defiance in Cal. "You took something from me," Cal answered, much more animated than he thought he would be. He realized how silly the whole situation seemed. A woman came in, opened an empty bottle, and then closed it again. There probably wasn't anything in it. Holding it up, though, he realized it wasn't empty. A sloshy green vapor rolled around within the bottle. It was entrancing to look at. "I want to know what you took." The woman looked between Cal and the bottle. While Cal was feeling a little silly doing what he was doing, her actions made it seem like he really had something dangerous, like the vapor could explode if he sloshed it too much, or suffocate them both if it was let out. Pursing her lips, she blurted, "All right, just set the bottle on the counter and I'll tell you." Cal looked at the bottle again. Besides the clear glass, there was a yellowed label with letters that were difficult to read. The main one wasn't. In big fancy script, it read, "Salve." Holding it, he considered how a bottle like this would be great find for the store. He rubbed his thumb over the word lightly. Then he looked to the woman. She had moved closer as he had inspected his acquisition. Shocked, he took a step back and held the bottle to his chest. Now the woman's other hand rose. "Please," she pleaded. "What is it?" he asked yet again. A desperation filled her face. "If I tell you, you won't want to give it up, but you're better without it." Realizing she had no plan to tell him, Cal again put his hand on the cork. "It's your grandfather!" she nearly yelled. Cal stopped. The woman nodded. "It's your grandfather. He didn't want to go to hell, so he possessed you to keep doing what he did in life. Put the bottle down, and you'll realize you don't even like antiques." Now the woman was beginning to look crazed. It was possible she would try to jump him if he even moved. He also didn't believe her. His grandpa was in hell? Absolutely not. "My grandpa went to church every Sunday. He was a good Christian. There's no way he was supposed to go to hell." The woman grimaced. "Right. I shouldn't have shared that hell part. But if it makes more sense, almost everyone goes there. None of us gets a go straight to heaven card. Cal didn't even have a moment to process the statement as the woman bounded toward him. His response was to step back yet again, causing him to step into the counter and lose his balance. The bottle escaped his grasp as he grabbed the counter with both hands to keep from falling. The woman, seeing her moment, then reached for the loose bottle, only she tripped on the rug and fell into Cal. This gave Cal the only opportunity he had. Letting go of the woman, he reached down and grabbed the bottle, uncorking it. "No!" the woman yelled, for real this time. Wispy tendrils came from the mouth of the bottle. Cal watched as they wrapped themselves around themselves and took shape into a human form that ended up looking like his grandfather. He was translucent, but solid enough for Cal to see the detail work in the vest he always wore. He was even wearing the glasses around his neck that he used to inspect antiques. Cal could almost smell the sweet tobacco smoke that hung on him from his cigars. He hadn't seen his grandfather since he was a young adult. "You saved me," the ethereal voice spoke. "Grandpa? It was really you?" Cal unbelievably stared at the apparition. The woman, meanwhile, ripped the bottle and cork out of Cal's hand. "You can't stay here," she bluntly stated to the ghost, recorking the bottle and dropping it into her bag. "Cal, let me back in. I want to go back to you. Think of all you've accomplished with me. I could help you find some real treasures," his grandfather proposed. "You belong in hell," the woman practically ordered. "Cal, get away. Nothing good can come from what he's saying." Cal did nothing. He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He just stared in a fearful awe at his grandfather, who was cleaning his glasses with his jacket. "I just want your body. We can share it," his grandfather whispered as he actually licked his lips when he turned to look at Cal. The woman grabbed Cal by the shirt and pulled, but Cal didn't budge. "You don't understand. I have to reset the bottle now, and he'll cling to you like a leech if you don't get away." Ignoring the woman, Cal asked, "Have you seen Dad? Is he on the other side with you?" His grandfather paced in front of Cal. "I haven't seen Abe since he died. I've been with you the whole time." Grabbing Cal's collar, the woman yanked down, forcing him to look at her. "Do you not see he wants to take your body? You're not safe here. Run!" Looking back at his grandfather, Cal could see hunger in his eyes that was unsettling. "What happened to you?" "I just miss my grandson is all," he sang. "Come give Grandpa a hug." Placing herself between the two, the woman gave an order. "As an emissary of the holy realms, I ask you, what in the name of God do you want?" Cal's grandpa scowled. "I want to keep my shop and all my things. To do that, I need to have Cal's body to make it my own." The woman leaned her head back while maintaining eye contact with his grandpa. "Is that good enough? What he wants will destroy your soul. Can we run now?" "Cal, I just want to do what I love," his grandfather pleaded. "I won't stay forever, promise." Now he looked more than hungry, and it made Cal feel like prey. Sidestepping towards the back, Cal hit a vase that smashed to the ground. "That was priceless," his grandfather moaned, dropping down to the remnants. Cal responded by turning around and running toward the back. He got about 5 feet from the rear door when his grandfather appeared before it. "Just give me a year to get my affairs in order," he begged. Cal turned and ran back towards the front. The woman was following him. Appearing before him again, his grandfather started negotiating. 6 months. Seeing Cal's fear, he continued, "Just a month to come to terms with all this." Cal was wondering if he should try the back door again or try to go around him. 1 week, his grandfather looked at Cal like a prime steak behind a glass. Just let me have your body for a week, then I'll willingly go to hell. Counteroffer, the woman said, holding an inkwell Cal had kept behind the register because it was filled. Why don't you stay here while I recharge the bottle to take you back? Then she threw the ink over the ghost. Come, she ordered, taking Cal's hands and running him up the stairs to the back of the store. Running into one of the upstairs rooms, one that was more like a working office, she locked the door behind them. Immediately embarrassed, Cal realized they were in the room where he was working on his costume. It was sitting on a table where she could easily see it. Without even thinking, he picked up a stack of art prints and threw them over his work. What did that do? He asked, now that he had sufficiently covered his shame. As though it was an answer to the question, his grandfather's arm shot through the door, causing Cal to jump. Calmly, the woman answered. When he came out of containment, it gave him a semi-corporeal form. Put a blanket over him, and he'd be able to move through it. Pour a bunch of something on him, like liquid, it sticks. More importantly, things like ink can't go through solid things like walls and doors. The hand pulled back and feet began to kick through the bottom. The handle of the door began to jiggle too. But now we're trapped, Cal said exacerbated. Incorrect, the woman answered, looking again at her watch and messing with the face. You're trapped. I'm going to recharge this, she said, holding up the bottle, and I'll be right back. You can't leave me here. He looked at the door where non-ink covered parts of his grandfather was punching through. I know this is scary, but once I collect him and leave, your brain will think it was all a dream or something like that. The woman smiled before returning to her watch. That'll do it. Take me with you. And Cal grabbed the woman's shoulders just as he saw her begin to evaporate and leave, taking Cal with her.